Hello. So, as you've probably guessed by all the lions behind me, yeah, I got a lot of Lion King plushies. This video is going to be about The Lion King, which came out in 1994, is when the movie premiered. During the making of it, it was at Disney. It was kind of referred to as Bambi in Africa mixed with Hamlet and Elton John music, which I'm just like, yeah, okay, yeah, I can see why the movie was a little bit like, maybe this will work, maybe this won't work. We'll see what happens. Thankfully it worked, and we got a lot of great songs out of it, a lot of fun characters, and that's what I'll be talking about. So that will be the original movie, which came out in 1994, the sequel, which came out in, I think, 1998, the kind of sequel, that's the Lion King 1.5, that came out in 2004, with about Timon and Pumbaa, which I really don't care for. And then there's the animated series. That was the Timon and Pumbaa animated series, which, like Simba and Zazu and Rafiki and the three hyenas made appearances in. I think Nala maybe appeared in it at some point as well, but they made appearances there. The Lion Guard, I will talk a little bit about the Lion Guard, which focuses more around Simba and Nala's son, Kion. And then I will talk about the miscellaneous stuff, so that would be the Kingdom Hearts stuff, the House of Mouse stuff, and the live action movie. There's no Lion King in Once Upon a Time. There was, as far as I can remember, I didn't remember seeing any Lion King references in Wreck-It Ralph, or Ralph Breaks the Internet, and I'm just not sure. I don't remember there being too much else in a whole lot of other things. Beyond, references to things, which references are fine, but there wasn't anything like major else that I can think of off the top of my head. So, brought out all my Lion King plushies. Some of them are newer, some of them I've had for probably 10, not 20 years, but like 10 years or 15 years or so. So, into the movie. The original movie, of course, all the movies, take place in Africa, on the African savannah for the most part, in the Pride Lands. We are introduced to Pride Rock, we are introduced to King Mufasa and Queen Sarabi, and their newborn cub, Simba. We are introduced to Rafiki, who is a mandrill, who is kind of their shaman type thing. In the animated series, he's given more of a title. I don't remember what the exact title of it was, but he's given more of a title. And he also has an apprentice in the animated series. She's kind of fun. She's very, how should I put this? Airheaded? No, I wouldn't call her airheaded. She's very easily distracted, but she's very sweet, and she ends up being very good at her job. But, so we're introduced to the main cast with that. We are introduced to, of course, Scar. And the opening song we get is, of course, the Circle of Life. There, of course, all the music was provided by, Alan Menken and Tim Rice, and, of course, Elton John, as I already mentioned. It's Simba's presentation day, and so he's held up for all the animals to see, and they all bow. And then, of course, we're introduced to Scar. Life's not fair. You see, I shall never be king. And so we get the Scar and the mouse, and then we're introduced to Zazu more, and it's very much set up right away that Scar and Mufasa do not see eye to eye. It is set up that Scar is the younger brother. Which, with actual lion prides, yes, it is, there's usually, if they're brothers in a pride, they're usually like co-rulers of the pride, and they don't usually like kick the other one out. It's usually lion brothers when it comes to actual prides in real life, in like real animals. You know, lions, for brothers in prides, they tend to stick together and they tend to just share the pride. And they didn't quite stick with that, considering that there's Nala in the pride as well, and her mother. And by all rights, with the normal lion prides, Nala's father would either be Scar or Mufasa, not some other random lion. And yeah, her and Simba would be like half siblings or cousins. So yeah, Disney, they kind of avoid that, and I can understand why, and that kind of plays into the second movie that I'll get to. But so we get that concept. We jump ahead a bit, and we're it's sunrise, and we get the before sunrise he's your son, which is so funny. And we get all that, and we get Simba and Mufasa up on top of Pride Rock, and they're talking, and it's Mufasa is trying to start explaining to Simba what it's required of him to become king, what he needs to understand. And we get great speeches from Mufasa, everything from where the light touches, except for the shadowy place, which is the elephant graveyard, of course. They go out, and we're, Zazu. There's kind of two versions of the movie. There's the original version, which does not have the morning report, and then there's the kind of anniversary edition that they did that does have the morning report, which is Zazu's song, which is just full of a lot of different animal idioms and everything. It's just a fun little song. They have it in the Broadway play, another various Disney movie from the 90s that resulted in a Broadway play. I didn't mention this when I did the Beauty and the Beast video, and I kind of should have, because when I was 4 or 5, my parents took my sister and I down to Disney World. And so we were down there for about a week and everything, and we had a lot of fun, and we ended up seeing a play, and the play that we saw was Beauty and the Beast. We saw a stage version of Beauty and the Beast. It had been out for a couple of years at that point in time, like 5 to 6 years or so, and it was very good. I've seen various stage productions of Beauty and the Beast, either that were high school or ones that were done at like local theater that we have here. And people have done them rather well. My own cousin has played Mrs. Potts in in Beauty and the Beast, because she got to sing the song. She got to sing Beauty and the Beast, and she did a great job at it. So shout out to my cousin, even though I highly doubt she'll ever see this. Or if not, hi. Or if she does, if she does see this, hi. But yeah. But, so we're introduced to Zazu and the other animals, and then we're introduced to the conflict with the hyenas. And in actuality, between lions and hyenas do scavenge a lot. That's completely true. Hyenas scavenge. That's what they're supposed to do. They can eat things that other animals can't, kind of like buzzards. Although I don't know how far past expiration the hyenas can eat stuff. And same thing with the buzzards. But, hyenas tend to clean up after lions' kills. After the lions are done eating whatever they ate, the hyenas usually clean up after them. Simba's sent back to Pride Rock, where we're introduced, where we see Sarabi again, and where we are introduced to Nala and her mother, who is, I think, Serafina, although I don't think she's ever exactly named in the movie. She's named in the credits. But we're introduced to Nala, who's Simba's best friend, and as stated by Zazu later, Simba's betrothed. Which, affianced. One day you two are going to be married. Yeah, sure, Gee, Disney, you're setting that up pretty young there for him. At least Simba and Nala, they kind of, they grew up together a bit and everything, so it's not like they're like two strangers that fell in love at first sight, so it's not quite that. like they do with some other characters throughout Disney, other couples. They did that a little bit with like Robin Hood and Maid Marian because they knew each other as kids, but moving on. But first Simba, sees his uncle. He sees Scar, and Scar tells Simba about the shadowy place, which is an elephant graveyard, and then only the bravest lions go there, and kind of tricks Simba into taking Nala there. Although, initially it's, they're pretending to go to the watering hole, and then of course we get to the end of the I Just Can't Wait to Be King sequence where they ditch Zazu. Zazu puts up with so much from these two. Oh god, he puts up with so much from them. Simba better send Zazu on some very, very, very good vacations. Once he's king, Mufasa better send Zazu on good vacations for everything he has to put up with Simba and Nala. But they had, they were able to ditch Zazu during the I Just Can't Wait to Be King. And they head off. And they make their way to the graveyard. Elephant Graveyard, where they, they think they're being very brave. And then they come across Shenzi, Bonsai, and Ed. Who are the three hyenas, of course. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you get Whoopi Goldberg and, Cheech playing them. That goes fine. And Frank Welker, I think it was Frank Welker that did Ed. They're just great. It's like, yes, put Whoopi Goldberg in the movie. Great idea. She can be a weird, evil hyena. So we work our, we get through that. They get chased all over the graveyard by the hyenas. Zazu shows up and tries to, negotiate to get them out of there, but that doesn't work. And they just get all chased around. And then, thankfully, Mufasa shows up. Yes, very thankfully. Otherwise, you two would be dead meat. And so would Zazu, and they would be having hornbill and lion soup for dinner. Yeah, that's not a good thing. But Mufasa shows up, knocks the hyenas out and gets, Simba and Nala safe, and they all leave. And then, of course, Simba gets his talking to. Although we do get the very good image of the big paw print with the little paw print, with, Simba stepping in the paw print, which is, the whole representation of, Simba has very big shoes that he has to fill with as great of a king as his father seems to be. Simba is going to have a very hard time filling those paw prints. But, and of course we get the very good bonding scene between Simba and Mufasa, where, they talk about the great kings of the past and the stars and all that great stuff, which is, it's a very good way of, pointing out that even when we're gone, it's a good way of explaining to kids, even when someone you love is gone, even, once this person dies, they're not fully gone, they're still there, which I very much like how they do that for this. And, Disney has done different ways of being able to explain death to children. Sometimes it's helpful, sometimes, a fair amount of the time they do a good job with it. And then we cut back to the elephant graveyard, where we have Shenzi, Bonsai, and Ed interacting with Scar. And we get, Scar's song, prepare, I don't remember. It's like, Disney brain, what's Scar's song? His whole song that is full of, World War II references with the way that he acts. Admittedly, if you have hyenas and lions that can't honestly work together, and the hyenas don't overhunt, and the lions don't overhunt, then things can go better. But, yeah, no, not in this case. And, Scar's plan is, he's going to kill Simba and he's going to kill Mufasa because then he's king. And that, that brings us to the next day. Scar's plan is in motion. And he tricks Simba, takes him to the gorge, tries to tell him, well, if you stay here, practice your roar and everything, and it'll impress your father. And I'll go and get your father, and I'll bring him back here, and then you can show him your roar that you've been working on. Which, I mean, Simba puts trust in Scar because Scar is his uncle. Scar is, he's been told that he can trust Scar. Although, admittedly, from other things that we learn about Scar from like the Lion Guard, I'm pretty sure Scar should have been freaking banished a long time ago. Given other things that we learn about him from the Lion Guard, which I'll go over when we get to the Lion Guard. But Scar, Scar goes off to go and find Mufasa. And, the hyenas are up there by the wildebeest. Simba's practicing his roar. And then, of course, we get the iconic wildebeest stampede. Which, is a very, I mean, if you're a kid in that situation, that's going to be pretty scary. And of course, Scar gets Simba and Zazu there, Mufasa and Zazu there, and they start, Mufasa's trying to save Simba, of course. Scar knocks Zazu out, so he can't go and get help. And, Mufasa's able to save Simba, get him out of there, get him up on the cliff, so he's out of range of the wildebeest, but then he, gets knocked back, and then he ends up climbing up the side of the canyon where he's, he thinks Scar is going to help him. And then, of course, we get the, Scar pinning Mufasa. And, the whole, long live the king. Just a very chilling line in regards to that. There's a lot of Shakespeare elements in this. And they even mention in, like, the bonus features that there's a lot of stuff in this where it was, well, we'll throw in a few more lines of Hamlet here and there. There's more, stuff like that we can throw into it and everything. Because if you haven't read Hamlet, even if you haven't seen the play, if you haven't read Hamlet, his uncle kills his father. And then he spends part of the time trying to, because his father's ghost appears to him at the beginning of it, and then he's trying to, figure out, how can I prove that my uncle killed my father? And then everybody ends up dead. He's dead. Hamlet dies. His father's dead. His uncle's dead. His mother's dead. The woman that he loved is dead. His best friend is dead. The father of his best friend and the woman that he loved is dead. And it's just like, okay then. Yeah. Wow. By the way, if you want a really good version of Hamlet to watch the David Tennant and Patrick Stewart version that they did. I think it was done for the BBC or whatever. That was a really, really good version. So if you have not seen Hamlet, watch that one. This is what it looks like. It's a very good. It was a very good one, and I can tie this back to Disney because David Tennant plays Scrooge McDuck in DuckTales, the new version that they did that just fully finished up. And then Patrick Stewart, of course, played as I mentioned way back in the Bambi video, he played the Great Prince of the Forest in that. So I can connect both of those back to Disney and still make that work. So yeah, watch Hamlet. Go watch Hamlet. Go watch that. That was a good version of Hamlet. It's modern day. They did a great version. It's based off of like a stage play version that they did, but back to actual Lion King, where there's still a lot of murder, but still less people die. And of course, Mufasa falls and he's trampled, and Simba then, Simba witnesses this. He doesn't witness what happened with Scar, but he witnesses his father falling. And, he's an impressionable young kid. He's a cub at this point in time. And I don't remember how quickly lions mature, but I think it takes a year or two, maybe. I don't remember exactly how quickly lions mature. But, Simba finds his father's body, which, in Bambi, they didn't show the mom's body because, the hunter came and got it. And this, we see the body. We see Mufasa's body. And that is that's a hard moment to go through. Even now, if I watch it, I mean, like, I don't cry now when I watch it, even with the live action version, but it's a hard thing to watch when you have, Mufasa there and Simba there, and, it's, if you're a kid, you emotionally connect to that. A lot of the 90s, the 90s stuff, I was a kid when I was watching it the first time, and I remember a lot of that feeling of, get up, That's not a fun feeling when you're a kid to watch that. Again, another way of Disney explaining death, and that's when, Scar shows up and he tells Simba, yes, it's a horrible thing that happened, but I can't, I don't want to be the one to tell your mother that you're responsible for this. And Simba's like, but I didn't do anything. And he's like, yes, but he was trying to save you. And, and in Simba's mind, he thinks that means that it's his fault for what happened to his father. And no, it's all Scar's fault. It's all Scar's fault. Not Simba's fault. Scar's fault and the hyena's fault. And so, he tells Simba to run. Run away and never return. Simba runs. And the hyenas chase him. And then, of course, he goes over the cliff and he comes out the thorns on the other side. But Ed and Shinzi and Bonsai, tells Scar that he's dead, and then Scar proclaims himself the new king of the Pride Lands. And that's a fun thing to watch, because we see Sarabi's reaction and Serafina's reaction and Nala's reaction and Zazu and Rafiki's reactions to this, and then like all the hyenas come in because he's king, and Scar's proclaiming, now I'm just gonna have all the hyenas are going to be part of this now. A new alliance between lions and hyenas. Good. When done right, they probably could work well together, but not in this case. And the correct balance of the circle of life, that would work. Not this. And then, of course, we cut out to the desert where we find Simba collapsed from dehydration out in the wastelands. And he is, of course, found by Timon and Pumbaa, the meerkat and the warthog. And, first they freak out about the fact that he's a lion, and then they decide that, oh, well, if we have the lion with us, if we raise him, then he'll protect us and everything. And, that basically goes about as well as you think it would go. I mean, it's kind of like the whole videos of, unlikely animal friends. This dog and this chicken are friends. This lion and this llama are friends. It's like, yeah, I mean, this cat raised these chickens. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's, there's that there a lot. So that's not like an unlikely thing to have happen. It's not unlikely, it's just, okay, sure, we'll go with that. And, then of course we get Hakuna Matata, which means no worries. And we get the whole big Hakuna Matata sequence, and Simba learns that they eat bugs, which he kind of is disgusted by, but then of course he goes along with it because, he found these people that kind of want to help him, and he doesn't want to have to leave again. And he kind of finds out that he likes the bugs. And, through the Hakuna Matata sequence, we watch Simba get older. Lion King 1.5 kind of goes a little bit more into the Hakuna Matata sequence, a little bit more into when Simba's growing up, which is just a lot of jokes. Lion King 1.5 is just full of a lot of different jokes. There's some emotional things, but not very much, because you already kind of know the end result of what's going to happen anyway. So I'm just not the biggest fan of Lion King 1.5. I'll still talk about it a little bit, but that's for after I talk about this and the sequel, the original sequel, Simba's Pride. But then we get into, Simba's now all grown up, and him and Timon and Pumbaa are talking, and Simba explains that, they're all talking, they're all looking up at the stars, and Timon's like, oh, those are just, fireflies get caught up in that big bluish black thing. And Pumbaa's like, oh, I thought they were balls of gas burning billions of miles away. Pumbaa, with you, everything's gas. I can quote the lines fine. Sometimes it's the songs that I'm like, ugh. And then Simba says, well, I was, someone told me a long time ago that, that's, where the kings of the past are. They're, that they're up there watching over us. And of course, Timon and Pumbaa laugh at this, and Simba kind of goes off because he's sad. And, he lays down on this, like, cliff thing that results in a bunch of flowers and leaves getting scattered that apparently have his scent in them, and then, they kind of travel, the leaves and petals travel on the wind, and they're brought back to Rafiki, who's still he's still, the whatever his position was, shaman for all intents and purposes. I do not remember. They give him a specific name in Lion Guard, but I don't remember what the specific name was, and I don't even want to try to say it because I might mispronounce it at the moment because I just don't remember what it is. Zazu is the major domo, which is kind of like a speaker advisor type thing for the king, but I don't remember what Rafiki's specific title was because they don't ever say it in the movie. It wasn't given to him until like the series, to Lion Guard. But they, that gets back to Rafiki, and he realizes that Simba's alive, and he heads off to go and find Simba. And unbeknownst to everybody else, Nala is also left, and she's made, kind of surprisingly enough, made her way to where, Simba is, and she almost attacks Timon and Pumbaa, and then Simba shows up, and they fight, and when she pins him, Simba realizes that it's Nala. Realizes that, oh my god, it's Nala, and she's like, do I know you? And then it's like, yeah, I'm Simba. Your friend, grew up together. She's like, how are you alive? We were told you died. Which would be kind of my reaction too, but, I'd be like, okay, prove that you're actually who you say you are. Tell me something that only he would know, type thing of like, what would be this thing that only like this, like you and this other person would be like the only two that would know about it. What would that be? I don't know. Well, we went to the Elephant Grade Road when we were kids, and that got spread around the Pride Land so many times. Tell me something else. We ditched Zazu. We did that all the time. Pick something else. That type of thing. And they get, and then of course we get the, the love song for the movie. We get that. Can you feel the love tonight? Which is just, a fun sequence between the two of them. Simba trying to figure out, how can I tell her what's been going on? Nala, why does he keep acting so strange? And, Timon and Pumbaa are kind of upset that Simba now has his friend. Nala wants Simba to return to Pride Rock with him, but he's kind of gotten used to his life here with no responsibilities, no worries, his Hakuna Matata life. And, they argue, and she kind of goes off, and then Simba interacts with Rafiki. And, gets whacked in the head a couple of times by Rafiki's staff, and then, of course, he ends up having the conversation with his giant cloud and star version of his father. Simba, you have forgotten who you are, and so you have forgotten me, type thing. And, you have to go back. You have to fix what happened. You have to fix what went wrong and make things better and stop your uncle. Well, he doesn't say that, but he says that in so many words. It's like, yeah, that's kind of implied. So Simba decides to go after he's like, yeah, I should probably go. So he heads off, and then Rafiki tells Nala, Timon, and Pumbaa that Simba went off, headed back to the Pride Lands. And Simba chases him, or Nala chases after him. And and Timon and Pumbaa do too, and then they all end up back at the Pride Lands. The four of them get their, make their way to the Pride Lands, and Simba sees all the devastation that Scar and the hyenas have caused over the seasons that he's been gone. And he's like, yes, I am going to find a way to fix this. And of course that results in Timon and Pumbaa being used as bait for the hyenas, so Simba and Nala can sneak past. Nala goes and rallies the lionesses, and then Simba goes to, face Scar, where he sees his mother, kind of getting, Scar has been trying to get Sarabi to be his queen since the moment, shortly after, he became king, after Mufasa died. He's probably been trying to get her to take that position for so long. I've heard theories that, because usually with lion prides, when a new lion would come in when the new male lion would come in as the new ruler of the pride, because he defeated the previous ruler and the previous ruler of the pride, and that pride that pride leader is either now dead or leaves. The new ones take over. They usually kill the cubs of the previous ruler, so that genetic doesn't get passed down, and then they mate with all the lionesses, so that way all the new cubs are going to be theirs. Therefore, and admittedly, you can't really do that in a Disney movie. So, I mean, I think they kind of make a reference to that in the live action one. And the fact that, like, the lionesses kind of stand up to Scar to kind of protect their children. And he's like, I think, if that's a little more implied there, he's like, yeah, I'm not going to kill them. I'm not going to do that. I'm not cruel. But, you kind of get that. And then we get a lot of, Simba, is reunited with Sarabi, and Nala and the lionesses show up, and they're ready to help Simba. And, Scar forces Simba to basically reveal to them that Simba is the one that's responsible for Mufasa's death, even though we know he's not, and Scar knows he's not. Simba thinks he is. And of course, Sarabi and Nala take that very hard, but they're still going to stand up to Scar. But, Scar backs Simba into a corner, aka to the cliff that is Pride Rock, and, basically has him in the same position that he had, Mufasa in all those, all that time ago, where he's, ready to drop him off the cliff, drop Simba to his death. And of course, that results in Scar whispering in his ear, and, Simba then, pounces, rallies his strength and pins Scar, and, makes him reveal it and everything, that he's the one that did it. He's the one that killed Mufasa. He's the one that caused all of this. It made Simba leave. And, of course, that just results in a big fight between the lionesses and the hyenas and Simba and Scar. And, Rafiki's there and doing some really awesome moves with his staff and whacking the crap out of the hyenas and such, and Timon and Pumbaa are there, and like they find Zazu, and they all work together, and they're fighting and they're helping and everything. And then we see Simba and Scar, of course, circling each other on top of Pride Rock. And, Scar kind of realizes that in a fair fight, he knows that he can't beat Simba because he's a much older lion. Simba's very young and very well fed, and Scar may have gotten a little bit, he's probably gotten a bit better fed. I mean, it's not like he was like starving or whatever when Mufasa was king, because he was still the king's brother, who should have been banished a long time ago, but we'll get to that. But, he was the king's brother, so it's not like he was going to starve, but he is not as strong as he used to be, and he was, he even admits he was never the stronger one of the two brothers. Mufasa was. Mufasa was the stronger one. And, they kind of go by the law of, the older sibling is the one that's going to be the ruler. Not the stronger of the two. It's the older one. Throughout Disney media, I think we have gotten some stuff like Scar and Mufasa as parents. And some of the other ancestors that they had, but not a whole lot. So we don't really know too much about like what happened previous generations for them in this family line. Not too much. We do find out that, or we go through that. But Scar knows that he can't beat Simba on fair terms. So he tricks Simba. He's like, fine. I'll leave. I'll take my hyenas and those that are loyal to me, and I'll leave. Because there's definitely some lionesses and such that are still in the pride that are loyal to Scar. That were more loyal to him than they were to Mufasa, and of course, then they're more loyal to Scar than they are to Simba, and which plays into the Lion King too. But Simba agrees, and then of course, Scar kicks because there's fire going on around them because there was lightning that struck, and the Trilands are basically like a giant timber box going up and everything, so everything's gonna get start burning and everything, and he knocks, ash and soot and, embers into Simba's eyes. And then, of course, they clash again. And then Simba ends up, knocking him off the cliff. And, Scar doesn't die from that fall. What actually kills Scar is the hyenas, because he kept saying, oh, no, it was the hyenas that made me do it. They were the ones that did this. They were the ones that wanted me to kill Mufasa. They tricked me. And, Simba doesn't believe him. And, the hyenas are like, well, he just turned on us, so, okay, let's chase him out of here. And, supposedly the hyenas are the ones that kill Scar, not Simba. But, that goes so great for Scar because, lying and more lies is not good. It starts raining and that puts out the fire, but there's still a lot of damage that was done to the Pride Lands between everything that Scar did. And, Scar is now dead and the hyenas leave. And, of course, we get Simba being proclaimed king, taking his rightful place as king of Pride Rock. And, him, roaring, and all the lionesses roaring as well, and Timon and Pumbaa and Rafiki and Zazu are there, and, him and Nala now get to be together and everything. And then we cut to, kind of the presentation of Simba and Nala's cub, which, at the end of the first film, is just a newborn cub. Because I don't know if they actually intended for there to be a sequel. Probably not right away. It was probably said, well, it's as big of a hit as it was. Let's give it a sequel. We already have a cub set up in there, so let's do a sequel. The cub is obviously not Kiara, because the coloring is not right, but admittedly, it's, this movie was made and finished before they even knew they were going to do a sequel, and then they did the sequel, and then they came up with the daughter idea for Kiara, as opposed to it being, oh, let's use the same cub, but, it's, the cub kind of, doesn't use that. The cub is just referred to as Fluffy, but it is, just kind of retcon that, no, the cub's Kiara, because, no, they didn't have another cub. Kiara is their firstborn. But I'll get to that in a second. And now we have the casts. We, of course, had Matthew Broderick as Simba, as the adult version of Simba. We have Jonathan Taylor Thomas as young Simba. We have Moria Kelly, Kelly as grown-up Nala, and Nikita Calame as the cub version of Nala. Nathan Lane is, of course, Timon, and Ernie Sabella is Pumbaa. James Earl Jones is, of course, Mufasa. Jeremy Irons is Scar. Whoopi Goldberg is Shinzi. Cheech Marin is Bonsai. And Jim Cummings. Another very, very good voice actor is Ed. Robert Galaume. Apologize if I'm mispronouncing names here. Is Rafiki, is, of course, he's a mandrill. There is Zazu, who is Rowan Atkins, who is the Hornbill, and Simba's Major Domo, who is like his speaker and everything. Sarabi is Madge Sinclair, who is Queen of the Pride Lands, and then Serafina, who is Nala's mother, is Zoe Leader, who just has like 3 lines in the movie, I think. Production of Lion King the idea for it started in 1988, so it actually started about 6 years before the movie actually came out. And they'd had a lot of different conversations about it in regards to kind of brought up around like Oliver and Company. And, so, they kind of worked in different things. And, of course, they brought in, the Hamlet kind of type stuff and the Bambi type stuff and set it in Africa. And then they brought in, they brought in, Tim Rice and Alan Menken and, Hans Zimmer and, Elton John to do all the music. And they did a great job with that. They did do research trips for it. They did go to Africa and do different research trips there for different like landscapes and stuff like that. They did have actual lions and, warthogs and meerkats and everything brought into the studio for them to look at, to do sketches of, to get, different, body movements and everything right for how the animals would move. Obviously, like every other Disney movie that has dealt with humanizing animals, regardless of whether or not you're actually, giving them more of a human type body, like they do with, Zootopia, and like they did with Robin Hood, where you give them more human, standing upright and everything. Whereas with this, it's you a little bit more just, you emphasize the eyes a little bit and the mouth a little bit, and you give them like eyebrows, because I don't think lions actually have eyebrows. They have like markings, but there's a bit different there. So we had a lot of that. There was a lot of rewriting of the film, the first half and the second half at various points in time, in regards to, what they were going to do with Simba, what they were going to do with Scar, what they were going to do with Mufasa. How are you going to bring this in? All that fun stuff that, all the great things that go into that. And then we move into music. We, of course, as I said, we have The Circle of Life, which is the opening movie, or the opening song for the movie, which is performed by Le Bohème, which I did get right. He is with African vocals by him, and then Carmen Tilly does the singing, the English version of the singing. And then we have I Just Can't Wait to Be Singing, which is, of course, sung by Simba, Nala, and Zazu. And, then we have Be Prepared, which is sung by Scar and Shenzi and Bonsai and Ed, although Ed's not really singing. Then we have Hakuna Matata, Timon, Pumbaa, Simba. And then, of course, we have Can You Feel the Love Tonight, which is, Timon and Pumbaa start it, and then it results in Simba and Nala singing together. Their points of view, and then kind of goes into them singing together. There are two versions of Can You Feel the Love Tonight. There's, of course, the Lion King version of it, and then there's, of course, the actual Elton John version of it, which is great. And I just, Can You Feel the Love Tonight won the Academy Award for Best Original Song during the 67th Academy Awards, which is nice. And then, of course, there's The Morning Report, which is, sung by Zazu and such, which is in the Broadway play, and then it ended up being, of course, in the Platinum Edition that they did in 2003 for the movie, which, I've seen both versions of it. And then we move into Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, which, of course, centers around Simba's daughter. And since they took Hamlet cues from, for the original, let's do Romeo and Juliet cues from this one, except that there is less death. Kind of. Well, the two people that are in love don't die. No. So we get the opening of it, which is He Lives in You is the name of the song. It was used in it was written for the original one and then used in the Broadway play, and then they use it in this as the opening song for the presentation of Simba and Nala's daughter, Kiara, for her ceremony, with, being presented by, Rafiki. And, up in the clouds, we have, Mufasa proudly looking down on them. And, Sarabi is still there, and Serafina, who's Nala's mother, is supposedly still there, although we don't see them. They're not major parts in this at all. And then we see, they do all that, and Timon and Pumbaa are still there. Zazu is still there. Pretty much the rest of the cast is still there. And I think they got most of the same voice actors to come back and do it. To come back and do their, reprise their roles, I believe, for it. As far as I'm aware, I think they did. And then, of course, new characters are brought in, because Scar is no longer the villain because he is dead. But we are introduced to the Outlanders, the Outsiders. And we are introduced to this because when Kiara is still a young cub, she goes off, little adolescent cub, she goes off. She's supposed to go off and, she's going off to explore, and, Simba always has Timon and Pumbaa follow her to track her to see where she's going, which, she doesn't like, because, she doesn't feel like her father trusts her, and she also doesn't feel like she can ever actually be alone. And, she ends up kind of escaping Timon and Pumbaa, kind of, Timon, Simba and Nala would escape Zazu, she escapes Timon and Pumbaa, and she wanders off into the Outlands, where she ends up meeting this cub whose name is Kovu. And they kind of hit it off. And, well, Kovu's like I don't need, Kovu's putting on the strong front and everything. And Kiara kind of knows a little bit about the Outlanders, the Outsiders, as they're called. The story behind the Outlanders, the Outsiders, is that they are the lionesses and their cubs who followed Scar. And the leader of them is a lioness called Zira, who is Kovu's mother. And Kovu is supposed to be Scar's heir. He is not biologically related to Scar. They state this in the movie. It is stated by Kovu's older brother, Nuka, and then Kovu has a sister who is Vitini. And it's explained by Nuka that Scar is not Kovu's father. He just took him in. So Kovu was the last born before Scar exiled them, stated by Zira. And Kovu and Kiara kind of hit it off. And they end up having to deal with a bunch of crocodiles that they end up being surrounded by, and then they escape from them. And, Kovu kind of helps Kiara, and then Kiara helps Kovu. And then Kiara kind of tries to get him to play, and then that's when Simba shows up and Zira shows up. And we get a staring match between, parent A and parent B. More like a growling match. And Zira kind of, because the rules is that none of the Outsiders are supposed to step foot into the Pride Lands. And Zira kind of, I don't exactly know what Zira was trying to prove here, trying to show here, but she basically tells Simba, well, if you need your pound of flesh, and she nudges Kovu forward. Here you go. And Simba, we know Simba is not going to kill a cub. We know this. It's not in his nature. It's in Zira's nature, but it's not in Simba's nature. And Simba just, lets Zira and Kovu go. Kiara wanted to be friends with Kovu, wanted to play with him. And that, Simba doesn't really like that idea. More for Kiara's safety, because he knows what Zira has done. It's supposed to be the prevailing fan theory. The prevailing fan theory that I have heard is that the cub that was born at the end of the first movie, who was referred to as Fluffy, who was given a name in some of the different merchandise afterwards, because there's books about him. I do not remember what the cub's name is off the top of my head, but he was given a name, and there's little adventures that he goes on in books that they had. But in this, the theory is that Zira killed the cub, and Simba and the others found out, because the lionesses were not banished yet. The lionesses that supported Scar were still there, along with their cubs. Were still there in the Pride Lands, and Simba hadn't banished them because he wants to try to make peace with them and try to say, okay, we can all stay together, we can all be a big, pride again and be the way that we're supposed to be. Now that Scar is gone, he wants to give them a second chance. Zira supposedly killed the cub that they had at the end of the first movie, and then as punishment, Simba banished her and her followers, Scar's followers, and their cubs into the Pride Lands, which would include Kovu, and Zira's other two cubs, Nuka, who is a bit older, who probably has memories of Scar, and her daughter, Vitini, as I said. And they head off. And they were all banished along with a whole bunch of other lionesses. Which, considering the amount of lionesses that kind of seem to be in Zira's Pride, maybe, or quite a few. There's still a lot of lionesses, of course, in Simba's Pride, hence the name of the movie. Simba's Pride has a double meaning, because it's Simba's pride in regards to his pride in, his pride of lions, and his pride in Kiara. So it's a double meaning there, because by the end of the movie, he proves to be very proud of Kiara. I mean, he's very proud of her anyway, and he loves her, but he's very, very protective of her. A bit more protective than is necessary. But, there's another song that happens in here because Simba is, trying to show Kiara, your place is here and everything. And then, of course, we cut back to the Outlands where we're introduced to the rest of the Outlanders, which is, Nuka, Vitani, the rest of the lionesses that are there. And we find out that Kovu simply just, like Kiara did, he wanted to be friends with Kiara and play with her. She seemed fun. And Zira is very manipulative even to her own children and very mean to her own children. The one that she seems to be the nicest to does seem to be Kovu, because she snaps at Nuka at one point and she snaps at Vitani at one point. And that, that doesn't go well at all. And we get this song from Zira because she's ready to start Kovu's training in order for him to be, trained so that way he can then kill Simba. Because that's what Kovu was always supposed to do, is, he was supposed to take over for Scar, and to do that, so they can go back to the Pride Lands, he has to kill Simba. Which, Zira wants that to happen. We get this whole song that's just called Zira's Lullaby, which is a very dark song because she, talks about torturing Nala and Kiara and killing Simba and having Kovu do that, and just, it's a very dark song, actually. But then we cut ahead several years or seasons or whatever, and Kiara and Kovu are now basically the equivalent of like teenagers. And, Kovu's grown up and he's a very strong young lion, and Kiara grew up and she's very beautiful. And we had a scene where Rafiki is, kind of conversing with Mufasa. He's drawing the pictures and everything like he does on the tree and everything. And he's like, we have Kiara and she's going to grow more beautiful and, everything. And then there's this other cub that's, Zira's cub, Kovu, who has, darkness in his heart. And, what are we going to do? And there's like this wind that goes through it, and then like a coconut or whatever falls or whatever. And like Rafiki picks them up and it's broken in half. And he's like, Kovu? Kiara, because like he's holding it up right in front of the picture. Kovu, Kiara, together. This is the plan? Are you crazy? This will never work. Just like, you've been up there too long. Your head is in the clouds. And like Mufasa sends this wind that like argues with him, and he's like, fine. Don't think this is gonna work. But I trust you. I just hope you know what you're doing. And Rafiki, you literally just had a conversation with the wind. So, I mean, I just find that funny. I just always find that so funny, that conversation that Rafiki has. And that goes, we jumped ahead a little bit, and, Kovu and Kiara know roughly like what would be teenage lionesses, or lion and lionesses. And it's supposed to be, Kiara's supposed to go out on her first hunt to prove that, she can, she's been training with her mom and everything. And she's supposed to, bring back her first kill type of a thing for, to show that she can help provide. As the princess and as a lioness, she has to prove that she can hunt. And she goes off, and Simba sends Pumbaa and Timon after her again to keep an eye on her, which, Kiara finds them, doesn't like that. Finds that they're tracking her, following her, and she's like, I'll do this on my own, away from the Pride Lands, and she runs off. And, Timon and Pumbaa go back and tell Simba. And we cut to Zira and Kovu, who, Kovu's now all grown up, and he's, basically not, I wouldn't say he's been brainwashed, but he's basically been groomed by Zira at this point to know that he has to kill Kiara. He has to kill Simba and kill Kiara, but they have a plan that they're going to do, and Nuka and Vitani are part of the plan, and Nuka and Vitani go, and they basically set fire to part of the Pride Land where Kiara is hunting. And, it revolves in visiting the elephant graveyard. None of the hyenas are there. And they get, sticks that had fire for that. Like, there was, those heat geysers that resulted in the sticks getting fire, and then they take that out, which I have no idea if that's actually scientifically possible, but they head off and they use that to set fire. And Kiara gets lost in the fire, and, Kovu goes in and he saves her. and he gets her out of the fire, and that's when Simba and the others show up, and Kovu, Simba is, Kovu and Kiara basically, well, first Kiara wakes up and she kind of like, just snaps at Kovu, like, why did you do that? Why did you bring me here? What, who do you think you are? Type of a thing. And I love their interactions with each other. I love their interactions. And he's just like, I was just trying to help you and everything. And then she recognizes him as Kovu. And she's like happy that it's Kovu. She's like, oh, Kovu. Because she hasn't seen him in, however many seasons. And and that's when Simba and Nala and Timon and Pumbaa and, Rafiki and Zazu all show up. And Simba's like, who are you? Why are you in my Pride Lands type thing? And, glaring down Kovu. And Kovu's like, I left the Outlands. I'm alone. I'm a rogue on my own. No one. And, Nala kind of, Rafiki goes, how dare you save the king's daughter? Type thing. And Simba's like, you saved her? And, Simba is extremely suspicious of Kovu, which, given his mother, does not surprise me in the slightest for how suspicious Simba is of the lion, even though he did just save his daughter's life, and technically has kind of saved his daughter twice at this point in time, but, reasons. And Nala and Kiara kind of are able to convince Simba to let Kovu come back to Pride Rock with them. And Kovu, he goes with them, and he's not allowed to sleep inside of the cave where the rest of Simba and Nala and the rest of the lionesses sleep. He has to sleep outside because Simba is basically like, nope, you sleep out here. And Kiara and Kovu kind of have this little back and forth where it's just like, Kiara's like, well, then how about you teach me to hunt? If you're such an expert at it, you teach me. And he's like, fine. And she's like, fine. We start at dawn. And she goes to go to sleep, and then Simba and Kovu sleeps outside. The next morning, that night, Simba has a nightmare where he is climbing up the side of the cliff like his father had been with the wildebeest, and he gets to the top, and Scar pins him, and then Scar changes into Kovu. Simba has that bad dream. And then, the next morning, Kiara is having Kovu kind of help teach her how to hunt, which does not go well for Kiara because she's, not good at sneaking up on things, makes too much noise and everything. And then Kovu kind of starts giving her tips. And it basically ends up resulting in them bonding, and which is, nice for them to do. It shows more of a bonding experience between the two of them. And they do this fun thing because they end up having fun because at one point, Kovu and Kiara end up going up this hill where there's a bunch of birds, and they try to scare the birds, but Timon and Pumbaa are there, and they're like, well, we come here because there's a lot of, grub around here that we like to eat, but all these birds keep coming down and eating them. So, hey, if you guys start roaring, that'll scare the birds away, and then we can eat all the food, all the bugs. And Kovu's like, why would I do that? And Kiara goes, because it's fun. And she starts roaring to scare the birds, and Kovu kind of follows, and they start roaring together, and Kovu gets to have fun. It's probably the first time in a long time that he had any fun. And then they end up getting chased by rhinos, and that lets them bond a little bit more. And then we cut to that night where Kovu and Kiara like up stargazing and everything, and Kiara says, my father used to, they're like, pointing at different shapes. Kiara sees a bunny, Kovu sees a pair of lions that are fighting. A bit of a dichotomy there. And he's like, well, and she's like, well, my father used to tell him, my father and I used to do this all the time. And, Kovu's like, well, I never knew my father. Scar wasn't my father. Because if that was the case, then Kovu and Kiara would be related, and then they can't do that for the Disney movie because reasons. But they, Kovu is, all he's heard about Scar was that he was supposed to be this great, leader. He was the one that should have been king. Kovu was supposed to follow after him and lead the Outlanders into the Pride Lands so they can take over again. And Kiara says, my father said that there was a darkness in Scar that he couldn't escape, and in the end, it destroyed him. Which is a pretty good metaphor for a lot of Disney villains, and particularly ones that are kind of more made instead of, oh, they're just evil. They, take too many wrong steps, and it's a lot harder to find your way back, and Scar did that. Scar took way too many wrong steps, and he couldn't find his way back. And he liked doing the wrong thing. Causing pain, causing trouble, just not good. But, so they're talking and everything, and then off to the side, a little bit away, we have Simba and Nala watching them, and Nala's like, well, how about you just give Kovu a chance? Simba's like, I'll give him a chance, fine. And they go off. And then, Kiara and Kovu are trying to make their way back to Pride Rock, and then that's when Rafiki shows up, and we get our next song, which Rafiki's like, I'm going to show you guys something, and they're like, what? And Kovu's like, what is this? And Kiara's like, well, let's just follow him. And he shows them Upendi, which is the name of the song, Welcome to Upendi, and it's about love. A place called Upendi, which, is, where, the two fall in love. There's lots of dancing animals and fun things and fun colors, and it's, just this big fun love song that they do. And after that, that's when they fall in love during the songs, where it's really stated that, they're in love. And then they make their way back to Pride Rock, and Simba and Kovu talk. And Simba's like, how would you come inside? It looks like it's going to be pretty cold tonight. And Kovu is kind of wary of this, but he accepts, and they go inside. And unbeknownst to Kovu, he was being watched because his sister, Vitani, is kind of, been, sneaking into the Pride Lands at night to spy to see what her brother's been up to. Because lions can hunt nocturnally and everything like cats. They have very good night vision. And she witnesses this, and she expected Kovu to try to kill Simba then and there, shove him off the cliff or whatever, but he didn't. And she goes and reports back to her mother that, Kovu, he had the chance and he didn't kill Simba and everything, and he had the chance and he didn't kill the daughter and everything. And Zira's like, he could not betray us. And the next morning, Kovu is kind of trying to figure out how he can tell Kiara about, Scar raised me to do this horrible thing, but I don't want to because I love you and I don't want to hurt you or your parents or the Pride Lands and, blah, 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 blah. But he can't figure out how to say it the right way. And then Simba takes Kovu off because he wants to show him something. And what he shows Kovu is still some of the remains of where, one of the fires that had happened in regards to, it's probably not the same fire that had been caused when Scar, during the battle with him and Simba, but he shows, he kind of tells Kovu his side of the story with Scar of, what happened with Mufasa and when Simba was a cub and everything and all of that. And Kovu's like, I never heard the story of Scar that way, because all he ever heard of Scar was, that he was this great ruler and everything from his mother. And, Simba shows Kovu, he's like, fire is a killer. And he shows him this little bud that's growing out of the ashes. And he's like, what's left behind can grow better than the generation before, if given the chance. Which is a kind of Simba basically just saying, I probably shouldn't have exiled all of, you and your mother and everything. Well, maybe your mother, but I probably shouldn't have exiled all of you into the Outlands, and probably should have just tried to work better with your mother type thing. So yeah, it shows that Simba makes mistakes too, which we already knew, since he made a couple of mistakes in the original movie. And, to err is human, but, Simba is also a lion. But, they have human aspects for what they do with this. They humanize the characters a bit. And unfortunately, that's when Zira and Nuka and the other outsiders attack. And she orders them to kill Simba, and Kovu tries to protect Simba. And Zira kind of plays it up that Kovu was supposed to lead Simba out here, so it's kind of destroy any trust that might be growing between Simba and Kovu. And Kovu and Simba try to run and try to escape, and Kovu kind of tries to help Simba, but Simba doesn't quite realize this, and Nuka tries to go after Simba, and unfortunately Nuka ends up getting crushed by a falling log, and Simba is able to escape, but he's injured, and Nuka dies, and we kind of get like a little funeral thing for Nuka, and then Zira blames Kovu for it, and she scratches Kovu, so now he has a scar in the same spot. I believe that Scar had his scar. And Kovu runs off. He's like, she's like, now you look even more like him. And he's like, I don't want anything to do with him. And then he leaves. So it's, teenage angst, but for better reasons than like the Montagues and the Capulets from Romeo and Juliet. And Kovu tries to make his way back to Pride Rock, where Simba made his way back there, and he kind of collapsed, and Kiara and Pumbaa and Timon got him back to Pride Rock, and he was kind of looked after, probably by Rafiki, just to double check his wounds and everything, because Rafiki knows things about medicine, because he's the shaman. And they go through, and Simba's like, Kovu did this, it was an ambush and everything. Kiara doesn't believe him. And then, Kovu shows up. And, all the other animals from the Pride Lands kind of gathered around Pride Rock because their king was hurt. And, Simba and the other lion and lionesses, hunt the other animals to a degree, but they also end up working together a lot of the time. We see this a bit more in Lion Guard, but I'll get to Lion Guard. The animals show up, or they're all waiting around Pride Rock and everything. And Kovu shows up, and he's trying to beg Simba for forgiveness, that he didn't know that was what his mother was going to do. He wasn't trying to hurt Simba. He doesn't want that. And Simba's like, I made my judgment. Exile. And, he's going to exile, he's exiling Kovu, which, Kiara tries to stop him. And, so then Kovu kind of gets chased out. And there's the song One of Us, which is sung by all the animals that are like chasing Kovu out of the Pride Lands. Snakes snapping at him, ostriches pecking at him, zebras kicking, him trying to escape, and they're trying to, him trying to get away. And Kiara tries to go after him, but the other lioness to stop her, and then Simba basically banishes, confines her to the cave. She's not allowed to leave Pride Rock without an escort. And, that doesn't work well, because she, claws her way out and escapes to go after Kovu. And at this point, Zira and the others have this, Zira and the other lionesses have decided that they are going to go to war against the Pride Lands. He turned Simba, Simba turned Kovu against them, and he's the reason Nuka's dead. And we're going to go and we're going to fight Simba, and we're going to take back the Pride Lands and, avenge Scar and everything. And that's where they head. And, Zazu goes and tells Simba that the outsiders are on their way, so they're going to go and fight. But first we have, Kiara goes out to try to find Kovu. And it's kind of the song kind of shifts, because it's a song that is first originally just sung through Kiara's eyes about, Simba had told her, so much that we are one, the kind of the circle of life type of thing, everything is connected. And we get these images where Kiara keeps looking at her reflection now, and she only has half of a reflection. And she keeps, that keeps bothering her. And she, I don't remember the name of the song, unfortunately, but, she's trying, she's looking for Kovu and everything, and then it shifts to Kovu's point of view, and he sees her, and they are reunited and everything. And so they're happily they're back together and everything, so they're okay. And like Kovu kind of apologizes and everything, and he's like, I wanted to tell you, type of a thing, and I didn't mean for that to happen to your father and everything. And like they see that Zero and the others are on their way to go and fight Simba and Nala and the other lionesses, and they're rushing there to try to fight them, to try to stop them. And it's raining and everything, and like there's a river that's flooding and everything, which is part of the story. And there's like a dam that bursts, so there's lots of water that's going. And Simba and Nala and the other lionesses are all fighting and everything, and Kiara and Vitani, or not Kiara, Nala and Vitani are kind of fighting, and Simba and Zero are fighting, and Timon and Pumbaa are kind of getting harassed and everything by the other lionesses. And that's when Nala or Simba or Kovu and Kiara show up. They, they stop. Kiara is, facing Simba, and Kovu is facing Zira, and it's like, no, you have to stop this. A wise king once told me we are one. I didn't understand him then, but now I do. In regards to the song that Simba sang back at the beginning of the movie. Was trying to show everything. We're all connected. We're all one. And he's like, but they. And she's like, look at them. They are us. What differences do you see? And Vitani is actually kind of the first one of the First, Simba kind of looks around at the other lionesses that are from Zira's pride, and at this point, because Disney, it kind of stopped raining. And Simba, the sky opens up and it kind of stops raining. And Simba accepts, okay, yeah, no, this fight is stupid and everything. And, him and Kiara kind of make up. And then, Zira, tells Vitani, attack, Vitani, attack now. And I always mispronounce her name. It's either Vitani, Vitani, and at some point, I remember calling her as a kid Vitalini. For some reason, it's Vitani. I don't know why I always mispronounce that. But, so she tells Vitani to attack, and Vitani doesn't. She's like, no, mother, this is ridiculous. We shouldn't be fighting anymore. And she, goes and stands by Kovu. And she's, she doesn't want to fight her mother, and the other lionesses kind of like watch this, and Zira's like, fine, if you will not fight back, then you will die as well. And like the other lionesses just kind of give each other looks of like, this crazy lady is gonna kill her own kid. Okay, let's go back to the other side now. And they join Simba's pride, and Zira's the last one, and Kovu and Vitani even try to convince her, Mom, just come on, stop doing this, stop this. We can try to fix this. And Zira doesn't want to do this. She tries to attack Simba. Kiara blocks her, and then they fight, and they kind of both fall off of a cliff where there's river. The river's rushing underneath it, and Zira is like falling down the cliff as she's like trying to claw her way back up. And, Kiara kind of, there's like there's like cliff, and there's like a little ledge inside the cliff, and then there's more cliff. And Kiara ends up in like the little ledge, and she, tries to reach down to try to help Zira, but Zira doesn't accept, and she falls. And, Kiara did try to save her, but Zira falls. And then Simba, pulls Kiara back up, and she's fine, and she's reunited with her mom and Kovu. And, Kovu and Vitani accept that their mother's not coming back. And, that she fell, they saw her fall. And, that Kiara did try to help her. Because, that's just the kind of, lioness that Kiara is. And, Simba's like, let's go home. And he looks at all the other lionesses from the Outlanders. He's like, all of us. And then they all make their way back to Pride Rock. and you know, Zazu and Timon and Pumbaa are there, and Rafiki is there, and it's basically kind of the wedding type thing for Kiara and Kovu, and which is just cute. And then the royal family, Simba and Nala and Kovu and Kiara go up to the top of Pride Rock and they roar out over and all the other lionesses, the ones that were part of their pride and other ones that are returning from the Outlands, they're all roaring together, and the animals understand that, okay, these lions are okay now. Still kind of got to, for like an antelope or whatever that the lions eat, we may still have to be careful, but, we got this now. And, everybody's happy. As I said, the main cast returned for the movie. For Kiara, we have Neve Campbell as her young form, and then as her kid form, and then Michelle Horn Neve Campbell is her kind of young adult form, so her teenage form, and then Michelle Horn is her grown up, or is her cub form. Kovu is voiced by Jason Marsden, is his young adult form, who has also provided the voice of the teenage version of Max and the grown-up version of Max, as in Goofy's son Max from like House of Mouse and a bunch of other stuff that he was in as an adult. And then Ryan O'Donoghue is the cub version. Zira is Suzanne Pleshett. And Nuka is Andy Dick, who's a comedian. Vitani, her grown-up form is Jennifer Leon, and then her young form is Lacey Chabert. The songs, He Lives in You is the opening song, again sung by Le Bohème. And, it's, about Mufasa's spirit. It still reigns over the Pride Lands, and he still lives on. Then, of course, the We Are One, which is the song that Simba and Kovu, or Simba and Nala kind of sing together. Simba and Kiara sing together. And My Lullaby is, Zira's song that she sings to little cub Kovu. Upendi is the love song that Rafiki sings to kind of get Zira or Kovu and Kiara to kind of fall in love and realize those feelings. And then we have One of Us, which is the song that the rest of the cast kind of sang to shoo Kovu away from the Pride Lands. And then Love Will Find a Way is the song that Kiara and Kovu kind of sing while Kiara is trying to find Kovu. One thing that I didn't mention is that during the end of that song, Kovu and Kiara are both looking into a river or a pond or whatever, and their shadows form, or their reflections form a whole, which I like that they did that, because it shows like, yes, they are whole together. And they want to end their family's feud. I very much like Lion King 2. It's one of my favorite Disney sequels. I think it might actually be my favorite Disney sequel. For the direct-to-video and DVD ones. It's definitely up there. Between that and probably Little Mermaid 2. I like the Mulan one too, but those two are probably two of my favorite ones for the sequels. And, I love the music. I love Kiara. I think she's great. She's just so feisty, and I love her. And then we get into Lion King 1.5, which came out in 2004. I don't really care for it. There's songs in there that are okay, but I just don't really care for it, in all honesty. It's Timon and Pumbaa's story, and that they were kind of there the whole time. And, we meet Timon's mom and uncle, and at some point in the movie, it's more of their story and everything, but it kind of rehashes stuff that was in the animated series that they had, which, the animated series that they had for, Timon and Pumbaa's adventures type stuff was okay. They were all over the place, considering The Lion King doesn't really have a time frame that it takes place in, because there's no, outside references there's no, humans that come in and hunt or anything like that. It can, take place at any point in time, which is nice. Bambi kind of doesn't have that because Bambi, it very much, we hear gunshots, so it takes place and we kind of see the hunter's camp sites. We know that it's not, it can't really do that. But, Lion King doesn't really have a time and a place that it takes place in. It's kind of, it can happen at any point in time. Doesn't matter. Timon and Pumbaa's animated series kind of goes all over the place. There's a lot of, they end up in like modern day different areas. There's different songs that they sing that I remember. It's been a long time since I've watched it. I don't know if it's on Disney Plus or not. It might be, but there's a lot that they do with it. It was fun. It was entertaining. It was okay. It's not my, I'm not going to sit down and watch it, but it was okay. Then we have the Lion Guard TV series, the animated series that they had that started in 2015. It actually ended, I don't remember if it ended last year or at the end of 2019. I don't remember, but I actually only just finished it up a little while ago because I didn't realize it had been finished. That is centered around Kion, who is Kiara's younger brother, so Simba and Nala's other cub. And obviously, considering that this was made a good, 10, 15, 16, 17 years after the original and the sequel were both out, and even after Lion King 1.5, another 11 years after that. I mean, it was probably in the works for a little while. But, it's like Simba, there's no references to Kion in the Lion King 2 because he wasn't thought of at that point in time. But they do kind of show that most of the Lion Guard series takes place in between after Kiara meets Kovu when she's a cub and when, Zero takes him off to go train and everything. And then between when then Kiara then meets him again when she goes off to do her first hunt. Because throughout the series of Lion Guard, we see Kiara getting trained by Nala in how to hunt. So it's kind of implied, okay, so that takes place in that time frame. The Lion Guard concept is that Kiara is going to be queen one day, and Kion kind of he's like, well, then what am I supposed to do? And Rafiki reveals that, well, there was a group of lions that was usually led by the second eldest child, because the ruler is the elder one, and then the other one was going to be the leader of the Lion Guard. And they have this, what is called the Roar of the Ancestors, which allows them to, when the bearer of the roar roars, it results in a powerful blast of wind. And like the clouds turn into like lion heads and roar too, which is kind of cool. And Kion apparently has this. Scar, this is where I said that we were learning a little bit more about Scar. Scar was the previous leader of the Lion Guard when him and Mufasa were young. Scar had his own Lion Guard, and he had the roar. And then Scar kind of went bad, and he used his own roar on his own Lion Guard, which killed them, because it sends you flying, and if you use it at enough power without control, it'll kill something, and it did kill someone. Killed the rest of the members of the Lion Guard, which are made up of the bravest, the fastest, the strongest, the smartest, and the swiftest. Well, the swiftest, no, it's not the swiftest, it's the keenest of sight. Sorry, the keenest of sight. And Kion finds out that, okay, now you have the roar. It was kind of gone for a while because, Simba didn't have any siblings. And, Mufasa died before he could have any other kids. And what ends up happening is Kion learns that, okay, you have the power of this roar now. It was kind of banished, it was kind of lost because it was taken away from Scar. And because, of what he did with it. And, it didn't return for Simba's generation because he didn't have any siblings. And now it's returned in you. And, now Kion gets to pick his new Lion Guard to help him protect the Pride Lands. And instead of picking other lions, he picks his friends. He picks Bunga, who is a honey badger. Go honey badgers for the Hufflepuffs. Yay! Bunga is a honey badger that was raised by Timon and Pumbaa. So he's kind of like Simba's foster brother, Kion's foster uncle type thing. I don't really know exactly how to explain that, but there's that. Then there is Fuli, who is a cheetah. She's the swiftest. Bunga is the bravest. Then there is Beshti, who is a hippo, who is the strongest. Then there is Ono, who is a I don't remember what he's a bird, but I don't remember exactly what kind. And he was the original, the keenest of sight because he could see so far and so well because he was a bird that could do that. And at one point in the series, Ono gets a bunch of ash and dirt and everything in his eyes, and it ruins his eyesight, so he can't see anymore. And then they bring in Anga, who is a type of eagle, and she becomes the new keenest of sight. And then Ono, because he is extremely smart and he knows so much about like all these different animals and seasons and weather and different plants and everything, he is now he's kind of I think it's the cleverest or the smartest type thing, and is what then he ends up being proclaimed by the end of the series. They go through all different types of adventures. They meet good hyenas. There's bad hyenas that they fight against. At one point, even, he interacts with Kovu and Nuka and Vitani and Zira kind of almost tricks Kion. And one of the things that actually happens that I absolutely like is when I heard that they were going to do Lion Guard, I was like, are they going to do anything with Kovu and them? Because, I first heard and I'm like, okay, they're going to do Lion Guard. And he's supposed to be Kiara's younger brother. And I'm like, okay, you have my interest. Let's see what you're going to do with it. And it's like, okay, so he's, not a whole lot younger than Kiara. Probably was born like the next season or whatever later. Because they don't seem to be too far apart in age. But given the fact of, they just don't seem to be that far apart in age. And they also, they act like brother and sister. They argue and everything. And they argue and then they make up and they learn from each other. And Kiara has to learn more about being queen and everything. But when I heard that they were going to do this, I'm like, okay, so where are they going to set it in the timeline? Because there is that big gap between when, Kiara meets Kovu, but then also when, she meets Kovu again. In the second, in the time frame of the second movie, there's that big gap in there. And they said the most of the series takes place in that gap because when Kion interacts with Kovu and Nuka and Vitani and Zira, he finds out because he mentions that he's, that Simba's his father and everything, and Kiara's his sister. And Kovu goes, Kiara? How is she? Can you please get us back into the Pride Lands? I want to see her. And they brought back the voice cast for them. Jason Marsden comes back and voices Kovu, and Andy Dick came back and voiced Nuka, and they brought the other voices back for him. They don't have the voice cast from the original movie voicing the actual the main characters. I think it was Gabrielle Union voices Nala, which was great, and then I don't remember who they had voice Simba. Do not remember who they did that. I'll put that up here who voiced Simba, but I don't remember. But they did a great job with him. And so Kovu ends up Kion interacts with Kovu and them, but he obviously doesn't get to come back to the Pride Lands, even though Kovu was like, well, why don't you go and talk to my father and everything? And I don't know if Kion ever tells Kiara that he met Kovu in that time frame, but at this point in time, Vitani and Nuka are still very much following their mother and what she wants to do. Kovu doesn't seem to have quite fallen for the whole of, Zira, I'm going to make you, raise you to kill Simba type thing. He doesn't seem to be quite as far down that rabbit hole yet as he is later on. As what ends up happening after the time skip in the second movie. But Kovu and the others, Kion kind of ends up roaring them away. Not Kovu, but Kovu follows them because he's still going to go be with his family. But, Kion and the others go on so many different adventures. We learn about different animals. Other animals come in and out of the Pride Lands. They have new villains that they deal with. And, at one point, Kion and the others, because we kind of get an explanation as to why Scar went crazy. it was, or why he went bad, it was he had been a good leader of the Lion Guard, and then he interacted with this strange lion that showed up at one point, and Scar ended up getting bit by a cobra that resulted in this, his scar. And in regards to that, the venom of the cobra didn't kill him, but it messed with him and it made him unable to control the roar, and it made him get angrier and angrier. And that is kind of what they kind of explain of what made him snap and what made him do what he did to his Lion Guard, and then it affected him more and more into what he did to Mufasa, but he never went to get cured. And the same thing ends up happening to Kovu. The same thing ends up happening. He ends up getting bit by a cobra, and gets affected by the venom and everything. And him and the other Lion Guard travel to this very special tree. I don't remember what it's called, but they travel to this very special place that is supposed to be able to help heal him. And it basically results in he has to learn how to be patient and everything, and slowly ends up getting better. And Kion falls in love because there's a bunch of lions that rule over this tree that has it's kind of like the Pride Lands, but there's lots of other animals there, and there's a snow area and a more desert area and a jungle area and everything. So all these other animals can come there, and you're not supposed to hunt each other, and you're supposed to get along and everything. And they're ruled by a pride of lions that are called the Night Pride. And Kion falls in love with the lady, with the lioness that is the leader of the Night Guard, and then is supposed to become the new leader of them when her grandmother dies. And her grandmother dies while they're there, while Kion and Ono, who because of his sight is being treated, and then she takes over, and the Kion's love interest takes over. They do not have a good relationship at the start. Issues happen, but it ends up being fine in the end. And what ends up happening is Kion had made friends with a bunch of hyenas. There were good hyenas, and then there were bad hyenas, and then now all the hyenas are good type of a thing throughout different interactions throughout the series. And they came to tell Kion that Zira and her lionesses are going to go and they're going to attack Pride Rock. And they left before Kiara was going to have her first hunt, and he had said something to Kiara, hopefully we'll be back in time for your first hunt, which sets it up exactly into the time frame for when that would fall for the Lion King 2. They don't make it back in time for the hunt, but the two hyenas came and they warned them, and then they make their way back to Kion and the Lion Guard make their way back to Pride Rock, or the Pride Lands. And while they're on the way back there, they end up coming across, when they get in the Pride Lands, they end up coming across Vitani and 4 or 5 other lionesses. And Vitani doesn't quite recognize Kion. She sees a lion with a weird scar, and kind of assumes that he's there to cause trouble, because it's been a long time since she's seen Kion and such, and she didn't know that Kion had a scar. She probably knows why Kion's been gone, but her and her group have kind of taken up the new role of the Lion Guard, because Kovu and Kiara are now married at this point in time, mated. They're not rulers yet because Simba and Nala are still alive, but now it's Vitani kind of took up the mantle of being the head of the Lion Guard, so that way, because her brother is going to become king, and she's the sibling of the king, of the one that would become king, so she would take over that role, and she did. And she found very good lionesses. I think they're all formerly part of Zira's Pride, but I'm not 100% sure on that one. We don't get a 100% answer on that. But they kind of attack Kion and his group, and then Kiara shows up, and Kovu's following her because they heard the disruption. And Kion thinks that Kovu is going to attack Kiara, and he's ready to roar because now he has his roar under control, and he actually mastered it even better. And Kiara's like, no, Kion, stop. Kovu is my husband. Vitani and the others are taking up the role of the Lion Guard to help protect the Pride Lands. Mom and Dad are fine. Zira's gone. And we get the whole, Kovu basically, or Kion and the Lion Guard basically get the explanation of, this is what happened while you were gone. There was a problem. Zira did attack. Kovu is good, Vitani is good, Zira and Nuka are dead. And then they do this like interaction between Kion's competition between Kion's Lion Guard and Vitani's Lion Guard. It's like which Lion Guard is the best. Some of the ones Kion groups win, some of the ones Vitani's groups win, but overall Kion or Vitani's group wins, and Vitani says, "Well, I don't need the roar to do this," and Kion was kind of taught that it was like, if you don't want the roar, he kind of learned it was like, if you don't think you need the roar and you don't want the roar, then you're worthy of the roar. And then he marks Vitani as the new leader of the Lion Guard, and then she has the ability to do the roar of the ancestors, which I like that they did that with Vitani. Gets her to come full circle, which works great. And then Kion and the others are like, well, now where do we belong? The others are all reunited with their families and everything, but they're like, well, what are we going to do now? We're not the Lion Guard anymore. And Kovu had been offered, Kovu and the lioness from the Night Guard, since they kind of fell in love. He was like, well, we could go back there. And that's what happens. Kion and the Lion Guard, the former Lion Guard, Bunga and all of them go back, and Simba, Nala, and Kiara and Kovu go with them to go and see the wedding. And Kion and the other lioness are married, and now they're the rulers of this tree of life type of thing. And Bunga and Beshti and all of them are now part of the Night Guard. The Night Pride, or whatever they call themselves, that are in charge there of protecting things. And so it's Kiara is happy with Kovu, Kion has his mate, and things are much better. And things are peace has returned to the Pride Lands, and I like what they did with that. Okay, now we have miscellaneous stuff. So we have House of Mouse. Timon and Pumbaa have appeared in House of Mouse a few different times. Same thing with, Shinzi, Bon's Lion Ed, Kovu, Kiara, and Scar have all been there. Well, I don't think Kiara and Kovu were never in House of Mouse, but Simba and Nala were. They were there several times. Mufasa and Simba made appearances there, so Simba's both been there as his full-grown form and his cub form. Not really too much with that. They don't really have cameos and too much else. As I said, they're not in Once Upon a Time, and they are. And you do run around in the Pride Lands area in Kingdom Hearts, where Sora is turned into a lion, Donald is turned into a bird, more flamboyant bird, and Goofy is still a turtle. He's a turtle in The Little Mermaid. He's a turtle in this. Okay, Goofy's a turtle. Goofy is the defensive expert type thing, so it makes sense that he's a turtle. And the first time that you're there, which is not in Kingdom Hearts 1, I think it was in Kingdom Hearts 2, I think, if I remember correctly, was where you interact with them. Simba is a summon in the first one, and then in the second game, you end up in, you kind of play your way through Lion King area in the Pride Lands, and you help Simba. And I think there's like a 2-part thing that happens with that, because it's kind of you play the range of the movie. You don't interact with Simba as a cub. He's already an adolescent, kind of a young adult. And you help him fight Scar and the hyenas. And, so you travel around a lot, and Timon and Pumbaa and Nala are there, and Rafiki's there. And, you go to Pride Rock, and you make your way through all of that. And you defeat Scar, and then you leave. And then you end up having to go back, because now Scar's ghost is haunting Simba, haunting Pride Rock. And therefore, then you have to, help Simba face that fear, because it's also him confronting with the fact of, how can I be a king the way my father was a king? Can I live up to him? And, Nala is pregnant at this point in time with Kiara. I don't remember if Simba knows that at that exact point in time, but she is pregnant. And that goes so well. so then you have to fight the ghost of Scar because he kind of gets powered up by the Heartless because he was almost, running the Heartless in that world. But you fight through that, and then you save the Pride Lands again, and then the end of that is when it coincides with the end of Kingdom Hearts 2, which Simba and Nala have Kiara and things are good again, which they did a great job with. I do like the Kingdom Hearts, the Lion King section of Kingdom Hearts. I don't remember if they have anything where you have to like try to play out the beats for like Hakuna Matata. I don't remember that being part of it, but it is fun. You run around as a lion, and Sora runs around with like his sword with the keyblade in his mouth, which is funny. And then we have the live action version, which I loved. I think they did a great job with it. They added in a few new songs. Most of the story is basically the same as what it is in the original. We get a little bit of extra here and there. We get Nala gets a song, Great Spirits, which I think was just a reason for them to be able to have Beyonce sing, which is perfectly fine in my opinion because the voice cast for this is Donald Glover as Simba, as the adult Simba. J.D. McCreary as young Simba, Chiwetel Ejiofor as Scar, Billy Eichner as Timon, Seth Rogen as Pumbaa, Beyonce Knowles Carter as Nala, Shahadi Wright Joseph as young Kiara, Alfie Woodward as Sarabi, John Canny as Rafiki, John Oliver as Zazu, James Earl Jones as Mufasa, Florence Kasuba as Shenzi, and then we don't have Bonsai and Ed. We have Keegan Michael Key as Kamari, who is kind of the replacement for, I guess, Bonsai, and then Eric Andre as Azizi is kind of the replacement for Ed. I think they did a great job with the voice cast on this. I think Nathan Lane made a joke on a talk show of like, everybody is replaceable except for James Earl Jones, which I'm like, okay, well, I mean, maybe. Diversify the cast. Yay. But we get a lot, they did a great job with that. Nala gets her song Great Spirits. We get a little bit more of, we see Nala actually sneaking away, her Sarabi more having to deal with Scar, more of the backlash of what happens with Scar taking over the Pride Lands. And one of the funny extra moments that I do like that they did with it is when they have Timon and Pumbaa having to distract the hyenas. Timon sings the opening to Be Our Guest. And then they run off, which is just funny. So I'm just like, okay, fourth wall break, anybody? But it was just funny. I kind of want to know if that was something they just did in the booth or if that was planned. I would assume it was planned, but still. They did great with it, in my opinion. Timon and Pumbaa break the fourth wall all the time. We get a little bit more of an interaction in regards to Simba's life out, before he goes back to Pride Rock. Because Simba and Timon and Pumbaa at one point talking, they're like, well, we're going to let Simba choose what we want to do today, type of a thing. And Simba's like, okay. And he's like, I don't want to do anything. So it's, it's a lazy Hakuna Matata, no worries. And they do a great, a great way of, dichotomizing something, because at one point, there's this giant termite mound where they live, and we have all these other bug eaters that are part of their group. And, Timon and Pumbaa are talking about how, it's like, why did you care about anything outside of you? What would I do affects this thing or whatever, everything. Like, Simba's going around like he claws, around the termite mound and, lets more termites loose so the other animals can eat. And like Pumbaa, I think, like breaks part of the termite mound with his tusks, which results in other bugs getting out so the others can eat. So it is, it kind of represents, the dichotomy of, Timon and Pumbaa saying, you just got to look out for yourself, but what you're doing also affects others, which is a great way of, do as I do, not as I say. Which, sometimes is the better option, sometimes is not. It depends on what they're trying to show kids. But they did fun with that. I like what they did for the songs. I don't think I'm missing anything for that. I'm probably forgetting something. Not that I can think of, though. Although I probably am, because that's usually what ends up happening. So, yeah, we have our books. We have Lion King and Lion King 2. Lots of plushies. Lots of cute little Simba and Nala plushies that I've had for a while. That's what we got. That's the end of that video. I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye! Everything you see exists in a delicate balance. As king, you need to understand that balance and respect all creatures, from the crawling ant to the leaping antelope.